So you want to work in big tech companies like Google and Facebook, or create your own startup like Airbnb and Instagram? OmniQuotient is here to help. OmniQuotient is an online learning platform where you can learn something new from prominent developers every day while creating meaningful connections with them. Just go to omniquotient.com. Follow the topics that you want to learn and the developers you want to learn from. Share your tips and tricks in coding and interact with other developers. Join the OmniQuotient community today.
What I've seen that hinders a lot of people in general is they believe that doing their job well actually gets them promoted.
How would you demystify AI for a 10-year-old?
It's actually harder to explain AI to an older person. Hi, welcome to CTOsDiscuss. Good evening.
Hello, good evening. Welcome back, guys.
Welcome back, everybody. And we are back. We are back
Yes.
today and with actually a special topic, which has been one of our most requested topics. And
Most
this
viewed
is,
as well, I think.
yes, most
The
viewed,
first
most
time we talked
requested,
about this. Yeah.
most asked questions,
Yeah.
all about blockchain.
Yeah.
And we will be talking about blockchain and decentralization, cryptocurrencies, and all these things for this month. And
Yep.
for this first episode, we have a special guest. Jerb, why don't you introduce our first guest for this
All
episode?
right. Actually, I like the transition, no, from our previous theme to this one because it dovetails quite well. This guy actually, I wouldn't say it's a career shifter, but someone na, for most of you guys who are interested in blockchain technology could be an inspiration. Why? Because
Oh,
Marco, our guest speaker, is actually a business economics graduate, right? So he's not even an IT graduate, but
mm-hmm.
he ended up with a job, and in fact being an expert in blockchain technology. I'm quite confident actually to say that Marco is one of the, if not like one of the top blockchain developers talaga in the country. I think
Wow.
because of the experience with what we've done in Union Bank and in UBX, I think we've done a lot of blockchain experiments, POCs, as well as gone live with it talaga. So we're quite experienced. So
Wow.
I think Marco's on the top end of the cream of the crop, if ever. So he, um he is our blockchain development lead in UBX. And outside of work, if you guys want to know, he actually makes a very mean like beer, like very good tasting beer.
Like he brews his own beer, brews
Yeah,
ba
yeah,
tawag dyan?
bro.
Craft.
Sobrang talented nitong si Marco.
Okay.
And then I think a lot of the guys also in the bank or in UBX have known him also for his leather crafts. Like we order parang
Mm.
wallets sa kanya. So ano siya, mahilig siya mag-experiment and to learn new things. And I think it goes quite well with, his parang career choice din siguro, no? Coming from economics nga, no? So anyway, guys, without further ado, please
Let's
bring
bring
to
him
the
in.
stage, yeah, Marco Romero. Hello.
Hello. Hi, Jerb. Hi, Albert.
Hey,
Hi, Marco.
Marco.
Na-interesado ako bigla sa beer at saka sa mga wallets.
Let's talk about that a little bit then. Go ahead.
Dalhan kita. Pag
Kasi nasa Cebu
matapos to.
yan.
Ay, Cebu.
Isi-ship mo.
Well, I'll let you know when I'm in town. I'll
Pwede.
definitely looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Very good
You,
quality beer too. Like not just like any
No.
craft beer. But yeah, anyway.
grabe na peg ng beer. Feeling ko may second career ka na. Biglang may mga orders. If you want to order from Marco's Beer, just comment
Plug
below.
Marco's beer.
Order.
Ayun na may mga tao na sa
Pinapamigay ko pa lang
comments.
eh. Hindi pa binibenta.
Ganyan talaga nagsisimula lahat. All good things start yun. Patikim-tikim lang muna.
Side hustles. Game.
Game.
How do we start this? I guess it's always a good question to ask like an expert, like to simplify something that for most would be very complicated. So maybe we can start with this one, Marco. Like, how would you define blockchain to a 10-year-old? Like, Paano mo explain sa kanila yun? Like in a very simple way, I guess.
Well, never ko pa naman explain yung blockchain sa 10-year-old, but I'll try. Explain like I'm 10. Blockchain is like the internet for value. The same way that in the internet we can get videos, images, articles, and whatever. Through blockchain, we can transfer value. So that's money, real estate, maybe land, yung mga things that we can put a price on. Kasi yung mga ganong bagay, we can't really transact using the traditional internet. I mean, we have fund transfers, but fund transfers don't really transfer value. It's more of transferring an instruction to your bank to send the money elsewhere, right? So in the end,
Right.
it's still the bank doing it. But with blockchain, it facilitates the whole transfer from your wallet to another person's wallet or account, right?
Right. I like how you put it because it's like internet V2, right? Parang
Yeah.
the very first version of the internet is like internet of information, right?
Mhm.
Na data, video. I mean, dito naman din sa blockchain, information pa rin siya, data pa rin siya, but you mentioned na internet of value. And I think yeah, that could be something that a 10-year-old would understand. Would you agree,
Yeah,
Bert?
yeah, I mean, to be honest, nobody has explained that to me that way. I feel like so many things clicked in my mind. Suddenly, I become super excited. Like, literally, it just clicked in my mind. Like, okay, so it's like, what is money, right? Like, what is money? Money is essentially saying that if I have a lot of money, it means that I have a lot of value and I can use that value to convert it into other forms of value, which could be like real estate or
Yeah.
other forms of value like entertainment or something, or an asset like buy like a house or buy
Yeah.
like a refrigerator. And turns out money is just a piece of paper that assigns a value, but blockchain is a more secure or a new way, right? Or a new way of money, a new way of assigning who owns what. Because I think like, yeah, right now I have money and I own that money because it's in my pocket.
Yeah.
And then blockchain is essentially another way of saying Albert owns this amount of money and it's not in his pocket. It's in the blockchain, and it's a more secure. I don't know if it's more secure. We'll ask you that question later. But it's another way of finding out or assigning who owns what. Yeah, man. I feel like thank you for treating me like a 10-year old.
that that wraps that wraps the episode. What's the so diba like in any technology usually there's ano ba yan? Ano yung term na parang necessity is the mother of invention? What necessitated blockchain, no? What do you think necessitated blockchain, Marco? Bakit nagkaroon ng ganitong technology?
Well, every time actually na nagkukwento kami regarding blockchain, we go back to 2008, 2009, right? And what happened then was a financial crisis, diba? A global financial crisis where people lost their money because of banks. And people lost their trust in banks. So, one of the things na lumabas nun was the white paper ni Satoshi Nakamoto about blockchain, wherein it's giving us a system where we can have our own money na hindi na tayo nakaasa na lang dun sa ano yun? Dun sa central banks ng mga countries that we have. So
Right.
the necessity here is more of came from a distrust of the centralized institutions we have now, which is actually ironic dahil it's the banks and the governments that's also researching blockchain yung ngayon, di ba?
Correct. I think the you're right to say that, no, and yun nga, it was the financial crisis that triggered the I guess the birth of this new technology.
I have a
Now,
question.
go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question because I want to press it a bit deeper. I don't know if you have an answer to this, but the gap in my mind is you raise a good point. Okay, financial crisis happened. People lost their trust in the banks. Satoshi Nakamoto's white paper on the blockchain or Bitcoin came out. And but the failure of the banks was in their management of the money, right? They're extending credit and extending credit to, just keep on doing that way more than what they could support. And this is good your business economics as well, because you kind of understand this. But how does blockchain or Bitcoin address that?
I
Or
think it's
does it?
more, yeah, it's more on the authority or
Mhm.
the lack of authority when it comes to Bitcoin and blockchain. That things are transparent in a way, and
Okay.
people have the control, so they don't need to be under the authority of the banks or the government that can dictate that let's print X amount of money. In Bitcoin or other forms of blockchain, it's always constant, diba?
I
Bitcoin
see.
is capped at 21 million.
Yeah.
Nobody controls the Bitcoin but the people. Even the prices of Bitcoin is dictated by supply and demand. It's not really dictated by one government saying that this is going to be worth X amount, right? So it's all about control, I think, for them.
Got
Yeah.
it. Makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. I think I would add na transparency din kasi yun nga no, if you guys watch the movie Too Big to Fail, it wasn't just the failure of the banks. It was really more of like a failure of the whole system because the auditors were, parang they didn't also do their own like their responsibilities, right? And we're
Mm.
oversimplifying things here, guys, but yun nga no, parang because of that lack of trust, then something that promise, no? At that time kasi hindi naman natin alam kung gagana eh, 'di ba? I mean, it took a while for it to actually finally take off, right? But at that time, uh there was like a ano bang ano dun, parang kind of like an exodus, I guess, to traditional systems, and that's why I guess the very first ones that looked at this technology were parang mga yun nga mga cypherpunks, no, mga medyo hindi naman sa anarchists but parang hey, I don't trust the system anymore and it looks like this is
Yeah.
a good technology. And it
You
came
put
from
your
there.
money in the
Yeah.
banks and it suddenly disappears, no? Out of
Yeah,
nowhere.
something like that siguro yung naisip nila, or you take a loan and then they screw up the system, and then the other thing pa is that the government buys them out, right? And then they just print more money. So ganun yung naisip kasi ng mga tao nun. I mean, it was necessary, right? Like there ayan si Marcos economics. So there needed to be an injection of funds, no, to help out the banks kasi magiging unstable din talaga yung economy. That was the other side of it, right? But I think to the guys that were hurt, it was more like okay, never again. Parang ganun. But I don't think like I think meron pa rin namang, I mean, a lot of people still deal with banks, right? But it's more of this technology has also quite evolved. And maybe we can talk about that actually. Na like the very first blockchain is purely public, right? And this is Bitcoin. And the reason why Marco mentioned kanina na it's also like an internet is that 'di ba sa internet ngayon, it's actually a internetwork, right? Of servers and computers around the world owned by companies, right? In this case though, itong network ng Bitcoin is owned by the ones that actually participated in the technology, right? So, yung mga computers ng mga tao na ngayon nagiging ibang machines na rin, no? So, ganun siya, may sarili siyang infrastructure, but it has evolved from there. So, maybe we can talk about that, Marco. What are the different types of blockchains, right? So, there's the first one, like public blockchains, and then maybe we can talk about enterprise blockchains. What are enterprise blockchains?
Yeah, well, let's discuss first in public blockchain. So it's basically blockchains that have the spotlight right now. You have Bitcoin, Ethereum, Cardano. They're basically all blockchains that's public. They're publicly traded. All applications are public, right? And the nodes are publicly controlled. The concept naman of enterprise blockchains is more of a way for enterprises to get the benefit of blockchain, pero without having to be fully public, because there are some drawbacks with being public if you're an enterprise. Kasi right now, the blockchain is no public, right? It's fully transparent. And there
Yeah.
are data that when you're dealing with an enterprise na hindi nila gustong ilabas. So, doon tapasok yung mga enterprise blockchains, even yung mga consortium blockchains, which is um, made up of different enterprises on one blockchain, right? So it might not be fully public like the ones we have, but there is an aspect of decentralization that still could make sense depending on the use case. Right?
Can you give an example of like what's an enterprise blockchain use case, or
Yeah. But for enterprise blockchains, one of the top ones right now, pwedeng Ethereum, may mga private instances na may Ethereum or Hyperledger. So Hyperledger more for enterprise talaga yung target nila, right? So for use cases, it can span into yung finance systems talaga nila in-house. So in big conglomerates, it could be an issue that there are different departments that track their finances differently. So they might need a shared ledger to be able to have that transparency and that visibility across their departments or even across their customers or clients, right? Um, Also, we do have use cases for logistics and supply chain. Actually, in the bank, we have something like that. So, yeah.
yeah, what's an example for supply chain and logistics, like the use case for that one? Because I
Yeah.
know like they keep saying something like now you can like, because of blockchain in the supply chain, you can literally track that the meat that you buy from Australia is the same. This like you can track it all the way down to your table, right? And be guaranteed that it's not fake.
Yeah, I think
Sounds like marketing, but I don't know. How does it work?
um it's basically adding attestations and transparencies on
Okay,
the
it's an
logistic
attestation.
process.
Sorry, 10-year-old.
Yeah. It's a proof that something
Happened.
transpired, right? So if I'm the produce farmer, let's say I think it was Walmart, right? That had their produce put on the blockchain because of bad cabbages, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So they put if you were the produce farmer, you're gonna put on the blockchain that you harvested these cabbages at this date and you turn them over to this logistic company. And now this logistics company will go to the blockchain and say that I'm delivering this X tons to this market or this distributor, and now this distributor will also put into the blockchain that I have given this product to different markets, and it's now here. And as a consumer, you go to that market, you might have to the market or to a grocery store, and you might have a QR code which you scan. And if you scan the QR code, you see the whole trail that this came from this farmer, given to the logistic provider and distributed at X dates. You can see when it was harvested, possibly even how it was handled. Like, did they store it in a food safe freezer or food safe temperature, right?
The temperature.
And in cases of bad batches, you can track that this batch is now for recall. So let's avoid this product and take it off the shelf, right? For supply chain, though, there's another interesting use case wherein you represent the invoices, or don't know if it's called invoices, but the delivery notes or whatever as a token, right? And now this token can be it can be sold because you already have a proof that okay, I'm expecting 100 units of PS5s, right? And you want to be able to borrow money or some other way. You want to borrow X amount of money and you want to use that as a collateral. So now you can use that token and offer it to another company, financing company, and that company can see that, okay, you have 1,000 units. I'll recognize that and I can use that as collateral and I can offer you the amount you're looking for, right? So that's one way for supply chain.
Yeah. The other thing to note here, more importantly, is that you can do this with traditional systems too, right?
Yeah.
Like that could be done in a database, right? Diba? Like everything.
Yeah.
Yung provenance part, like with the cabbages and with the use case, I think with the WWF, it was tuna. Pwede mo namang gawin yan with a traditional database, except that on the blockchain, it's more like tamper proof, right? So you're certain that whenever that data was put in the blockchain, it can never be changed, right? It's there permanently, and you're kind of certain that the information you're being provided has never been tampered. Nobody has messed around with it, no. Now
Yeah.
you could argue that, let's say pinalitan yung cabbage, no, or kasi QR code lang naman yun. Well, that's the problem lang din kasi these are physical assets that you actually store on a digital ledger, right? But everything else should
Yeah.
be, kumbaga, you can trust the data, which before you cannot trust the data. That trust had to be done with the counterparty. Diba? You had to trust the banks, you had to trust, let's say, sino ba? Si Dole, right? Lang mga producers ng mga, let's say, vegetables or fruits, mga ganun. So, there. Yeah,
Got
yeah.
it. Got
Interesting.
it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Thanks
yeah.
for indulging me there. And now it makes sense. Got it.
Yeah, 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 yeah. You have other questions, Bert?
I think, well, not specific on the blockchain, but more of like you. Like you started off business economics.
Hmm.
How did you make the transition to blockchain? I'm also curious on why.
Yeah. Funny story actually. Back in 2017, I started trading cryptocurrencies, and when I was trading, I wanted to know what the hell I'm trading, because I can't just use technical analysis to trade. I wanted to learn more about it, so I looked at Ethereum, Bitcoin, and whatever, right? And when I was looking at Ethereum, I saw the use cases and the principles that it was following, and it clicked on me. I realized that it made sense that there's a lot of things we can do about it. So I gotten more into it. I was reading a lot of white papers, but at this time I was still a management trainee for Union Bank, and I, I I got an opportunity to shift into blockchain, more for a project management kind of thing, supposedly. But the thing back then, back in 2017, was you can propose a project, but once it's time to look for a developer, everyone's going to be like, sino gagawa nito? Who's going to do this? And
Yeah.
sometime I just answered, okay, I'll do it. And I started developing blockchain. My first programming language was actually Solidity. I mean, as absurd as that sounds, it is. Actually
Why
helped me.
absurd? Why absurd? Sorry.
People kind of expect you to know the basic, at least of JavaScript first before you go
Okay.
into Solidity, right? And people don't really expect a developer to start with blockchain. Right?
Yeah.
They expect some background in other programming languages, like familiarity with databases, JavaScript, Python, or whatever, right? But I started with Solidity and Web3.js with JavaScript, um, and it actually helped me because I learning blockchain right now. When I teach other people, we start by emptying the cup, right? Because a lot of people approach blockchain and apply the current programming practices that they already know. And oftentimes it's not going to be applicable. They go into it
Right.
thinking it's a database, but it's not. It's not just a database. Um, y- so it helped me in a sense that I was fresh. I didn't really have expectations out of that language because right now when I'm using Python or JavaScript, you're looping through arrays, you have list comprehensions, you have all those things that you can do. But when you're in the block, when you're doing Solidity, it's so basic. As in, there's really a lot of things that you can't and shouldn't do in Solidity. And yeah, that helped me that I didn't really have those expectations. And I was working with Solidity as it is. Right. And another thing is in Solidity and blockchain development in general, it helps to be familiar with the business and the processes. So that's where my background helped. I was an operational excellence analyst back then. My background in business economics and familiarity with the financial systems, it allowed me to understand the underlying processes and made me capable of expressing it in Solidity.
Sorry. What does it mean to be operational excellence?
Um, more on Six Sigma, so reducing waste, um, streamlining processes. Yeah.
processes.
Got it. Got it. Okay. That's interesting. You mentioned that you started right away with Solidity and that actually helped. Um, I have no idea. I know I've heard of Solidity, but I have no idea how it even looks like and how to program with it. So maybe can you like give a brief idea of how different it is? What does it look like?
Um, it it's actually quite similar to JavaScript.
Mm-hmm.
Although it is statically typed. Um, what what makes it different though is all the idiosyncrasies of Solidity. There's a lot of things you can't do. I mean, arrays are actually difficult in Solidity. There are practices that actually avoids large arrays,
Maybe
right?
let's backtrack a little bit. Why would you program in the blockchain? Like what's the
Hmm.
purpose of Solidity?
Yeah, yeah. So Solidity is basically for smart contracts. It's
Mm.
how you create programs on the blockchain. Let's say, for example, Bitcoin. Bitcoin, there's a bit of programmability in it, but it's not really as programmable as Ethereum. Right? So Bitcoin's basically used right now for it's cryptocurrency, right? It's basically just for Bitcoin. But for Ethereum, it's programmable. You can have other programs running on it. So if you need to create
Yeah.
a token, you can make a smart contract that follows the ERC20 standard, 77, or whatever token you need. If you want to make a liquidity pool, you can you can even just copy the code of Uniswap and deploy that, and you
Sorry,
now
sorry,
have
you
a
went here. Number one, what's a liquidity pool?
yeah, yeah,
What's Uniswap?
yeah. So I think if I discuss that, it's gonna take a lot of our time, but it's another form of market making
Okay.
basically for Uniswap. So it's one of the smart contracts built on Ethereum using
Hmm.
Solidity. So that's why you go into Solidity. You want to create a new product. You want to create a project, maybe a process that can streamline something. You want to make a token, right? You want
Yeah.
to express real estate in the token forms. Maybe even create an escrow. So that's all the
Question,
things.
question.
Mhm.
So, I mean, Axie Infinity, that's a game that's very famous right now.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Is that what you would program in Solidity? How is Solidity
Yes,
there?
yes.
Okay.
So the creation of the tokens, maybe even the NFTs, so the
Yeah.
non-fungible tokens that represent the cute little Axie monsters that you have, that's Solidity. That's used in Solidity. I mean, there's a lot of off-chain things happening as well. I mean, the game itself, it's running probably on a server somewhere instead of the
Mm.
blockchain, but the assets are stored on the blockchain,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. And you asked kanina, Bert, diba, why do you program? So again, we go back to the very first version of the blockchain. It's Bitcoin, and as Marco mentioned, the use cases that are there is very limited. No? And right now, talaga primarily, it's just really for BTC. No, you trade Bitcoin or buy and sell. It records all those transactions. Now, the idea of Vitalik Buterin, which is the founder talaga of Ethereum, is that he wanted to build like a decentralized computer or the world's computer, right? Where people could actually deploy programs that people
Mm.
can interact with. And in effect, these contracts, or now called smart contracts, are actually para silang, it's like a
Would it
robot, I guess. No?
would it be
It
Yeah,
closer to saying the world's operating system or really computer?
pwede
yeah.
rin. Pwede rin word OS. Oo,
Yeah.
exactly.
The way they actually compare it is that um, Bitcoin's like a knife. It does one thing, but it does it well. You have other blockchains that are Swiss Army knives. They do several things, but they only do those things. Ethereum is like a smartphone, wherein you have
Mm.
endless possibilities because you have the Play Store, wherein you get multiple apps. You can create more on top of that smartphone, right? So that's Ethereum.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, ganda nun. Ganda nung ano.
Got it. Got it. And so if you
Yeah.
want to build an app on the iPhone, you have to learn Swift or but before Objective
yeah,
C, and then Java, Android. Kotlin, Android. So if you were to build on the Ethereum, you would have to learn Solidity.
Yes.
Is
Yes.
that the only programming language used by Ethereum?
I mean, we have others, but Solidity is the biggest one.
Got it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Would you
Yeah.
recommend people to learn it? How would you recommend it that programmers start learning about it? What's the path here? Should
Yeah,
they get involved
definitely.
first with Ethereum, or should they take this on right away? What's the
I mean, first things first is they need to find like an interesting industry or use case that they want to explore, because there's a lot that you can do with blockchain. You can focus on the infrastructure side of it. You can look at the protocol layer. You can look at the financial use cases, maybe even DeFi. You can look at gaming use cases. So you find a specific use case that you want, read up on it, then see how you can contribute, because you can contribute through, as I said, infra, or maybe even by creating your own smart contracts for a problem that you want to solve, right?
how in demand are Solidity devs right now? Because being honest, from my perspective, I'm not exposed to it. Like if I were to make a guess of like the things that pop up in my LinkedIn or in my Facebook feed, and maybe because it's not my algorithm, um, it doesn't. I don't see it that much. What am I missing? Am I missing something, or is it still like a very early stage ground floor kind of opportunity?
It depends on your view. If you're looking at local, there's few. Um, International, there's actually a lot of opportunities.
Yeah.
My experience here is that um, a lot companies don't necessarily look for blockchain developers, but the ones that do, they have high demand for them, right? So
Mga
it's
rare.
yeah. Mm-mm.
So would you
Um,
say if somebody were to learn Solidity and learn it well, would they have a hard time looking for a job, or is
I mean, it's not
is this like a hobby
they
thing, right? I'm guessing what I'm asking is like, is this a hobby thing, or is this like the internet in the very beginning where there was no money to be made yet, just a lot
not
of fun?
really, not really. In blockchain, there's actually money to be made. It just depends on what you're trying to look for. If you're trying to look for traditional employment in the sense of companies, especially in the
Mhm.
Philippines, for example, locally, it's going to be difficult.
Okay.
A lot of the business here is more on the R&D or the cryptocurrency side of things, right?
Yeah.
But if you want to work on use cases, you might want to look at more international things,
Mhm.
or be ready to join startups, right? Because that's going to be where the demand is for the blockchain space.
Correct,
Got it.
correct.
Got it.
And if I can just ano siguro from a more like very top level point of view, no, like a lot there's been a I think there's been a boom uh I think starting 2017 or 16, right? Of blockchain startups. In fact, there was like a joke in the um parang
Silicon Valley. You just say
yeah,
blockchain
yeah,
plus
or
AI,
VC.
like.
If you want funding, you just say it, your project does blockchain,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So may ganun talaga siya. So may trend siya going on. And Marco's correct na. If you're looking at local opportunities, konti lang siguro. Pero meron pa rin. And I think because of the rarity, right, of the talents, they actually uh should be paying premium, right? So that's good news for you guys wanting to learn this technology. Um, but there's plenty of opportunities internationally, right? And you guys have obviously heard of these games, mga NFT games, or even yung mga totoong decentralized projects talaga. You'd be surprised, I guess, if you put like blockchain developer on your LinkedIn, you'll probably get a lot of things from people offshore. Kasi nga, wala naman masyado ditong ganun pa sa Pilipinas. Yeah, 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 yeah. Um,
What's Go ahead,
go
Gerald.
ahead, go ahead, Bert.
Okay. What's your take on like the if this was like a hype cycle, right? Like where is this on the hype cycle? Are we early? Are we like already like reached its plateauing? Like where I mean, I know you're a little bit maybe biased, you're bullish. I don't know, but what's your I want to hear it from you. What's your thoughts on here and why?
Um, well, back in 2017, probably that's going to be 2017, 2018. That's going to be the peak hype
Yeah.
era for blockchain.
Yeah.
Back then, a white paper could really land you a lot of money. Even if you really don't have anything yet, just a white paper
Wow.
and a rough
Oh, was
roadmap.
this the ICO
Yeah,
hype?
yeah, yeah. That's
Okay.
the
Yeah.
ICO boom.
Sobrang dami
20,
nun.
2017 to 2018. Then followed by the crypto winter that lasted till 2019, 2020, right?
2020,
Uh,
yeah.
that's
And then sobrang nag-spike ulit.
yeah. And right
Yeah.
now we're probably on the way up. What's that called? The trough of enlightenment or something? Where people are more careful with where they're investing and they demand more output before actually going in. There's still hype, there's still FOMO, but it's not, looking at it now, it's not as bad as it was back in 2018. There's also institutional interests coming in, both in crypto and blockchain use cases. So it's definitely rising. So yeah.
I have one last question, Jerb, and I'm gonna give it to you
Go
for
ahead, go ahead.
Uh, Marco, what's the vision here? Like, why did you decide to shift your career? What made sense to you? What is the thing you're working towards that you're super excited and hope that you would be able to see within your, within the next few years, within your lifetime? I don't know what's your time frame. What is it? Can
Yeah.
you paint me a picture?
Um, so my background is in business economics, right? I worked in the bank as finance. Even my previous job was in finance. And back in 2017, we didn't have InstaPay or PesoNet. I mean, it was starting, but it's not really available yet.
Yeah.
And looking at blockchain, looking at how it could connect institutions, financial institutions together, even peer to peer, it made sense in a way that it's going to offer a lot of efficiencies with how we work in the financial world and even off finance, in the non-finance world, right? When we look at gaming right now, you have the concept of play to earn, even a metaverse wherein you can have assets outside the game that can be used in other games, right? Um, there's a lot of opportunities and possibilities with blockchain.
Sorry, I'm gonna
Um,
ask you to break down metaverse for me. I'm not so sure what you mean by that.
I think actually Jerb could be better here because I know he's kind of active in the play
Go
to earn
first.
community. Um, well, actually not that. So I'm just gonna pass it off to you.
Sige,
But
sige, no
yeah,
problem. Yeah, so like metaverse is like not alternate universe, right? But virtual shared space, 'di ba? So Marco actually na-explain na yun ni Marco a little bit, no? Na when there's a lot of projects going on, Bert, 'di ba, sa blockchain, and ngayon nga itong parang boom ng NFT games,
Mm.
which was the first one? What's the first one, Marco, that you remember? CryptoKitties, 'di ba?
well, it's not
Ah,
actually a game; it's a collectible. The first one I
collectible.
know is Gods Unchained, wherein they actually have a game to back the
Mm,
NFTs. Yeah. It's like
right,
Hearthstone,
right. Yeah,
but
yeah.
you own the cards.
Yeah. But 'di ba, Bert, in
Oh,
more traditional games, right? It's a game cannot cross over to another game, right?
true.
Yon. So dito sa metaverse, yung ano dito is like um it's like the sum of all, para a collection of all the virtual worlds, I guess, no? So
It's like Ready Player One,
yeah,
Yeah,
parang
yeah,
ganon.
yeah.
Yeah.
where you enter the game, but it's not yet the game. The game is after like within the game. Like you pick the game. Okay,
Oh,
got
parang
it.
ganon. Yeah,
Ganyan,
yeah, parang
okay.
ganon.
That's
And
really
so
cool.
ang kagandahan nito is yun nga, no, if these games, the reason why these games couldn't transfer to other games before is that how could you trust it, right? Na uy, itong lumabas na, let's say 50,000 universe ABC tokens na to, are real or someone fabricated it lang, 'di ba? Or someone produced it lang. But with blockchain, kasi you know, all those things that we talked about earlier also apply, no? And that's why
Got it.
when Marco mentioned kanina na assets outside of the game can be used for other things. So, yeah, so that's actually exciting, but
Yeah.
baka something na we can probably see not so soon, but depends, I guess.
So
Pero so
wait,
far, go ahead.
in Axie Infinity, you own the cards
You
for
own
the
the
Axie,
Pokemons, the
the
Axies.
The
Pokemon.
Yeah,
axis.
yeah, yeah.
That's right. So it's like Magic the Gathering. You fight with your own cards, right? Like it's
Correct,
your
correct,
cards.
correct, correct.
That's
Yeah.
interesting. And
You
so the
bring your
next
own
catch
deck and you
here
own them. Yeah.
is if you could bring that Pokemon into another game and it also
Yeah.
has its own dynamic in another game.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Exactly.
interesting.
So you can
Yeah.
Has
farm
it
like
happened before yet, or has it already? That's what you're
Wala pa,
envisioning,
wala
right?
pa.
not really. That's a
Wala
Okay,
pa.
possibility though for
Yeah.
the metaverse.
got it.
Sobra, sobra. And if you think about it, Bert, like kanina yung sinabi ni Marco na Uniswap tuloy Marco.
Uniswap.
Uniswap, yung Uniswap no or pancake swaps, these things are like they act like bridges, right? On different universes or blockchains, right? And ang ginagawa kasi nito is 'di ba, traditionally, if you go to a bank, right? You have US dollar from the US, which is you could say it's another world, and then you
Ah,
have Philippine peso, 'di ba? You would go to an exchange, right? And
right,
then
right.
that exchange actually swaps you, right?
I
So in
see.
effect, these smart contracts are the same. Na instead of interacting with Albert like a branch manager, you actually go to that smart contract and then say, "Hey, I want to exchange 50 BNB for let's say something Ethereum, kung ano man yung equivalent nun." And now we're just talking about currencies right now, right? But again, as Marco mentioned kanina, those information could actually represent your axes, right? Or like real estate from another world or universe, right? And then pwede rin yung token talaga ng world na yun. So they can actually cross like and mingle with each other in effect. Parang ganun.
Got it.
Interesting. Yeah, interesting, right? But there's a big but, right? Like I think
Okay.
this is still very nascent. I still think, no, and I think there's still a lot of challenges. What do you think are the top challenges right now on this space, Marco?
For blockchain actually, especially Ethereum. One naalala ko yung meme, ano yun yung kay DJ Khaled, yung suffering from success. Kasi um with Ethereum right now, ang daming gumagamit. So you have a lot of use cases, and one of the things that yung consequence nun is you have high transaction fees because people are driving up the gas prices because they want to be able to transact first or earlier, or they just want their transactions to go in. And sometimes a transaction that's you just want to transfer $20 worth of Ethereum, but it's going to cost you like $10. So that doesn't make sense, right? So it's spacing out a lot of use cases that were originally thought of for the remittance space, because before in remittance people were looking at, oh, you can transact large amounts for 10 cents, but not now it's worth $10, $20. So even for
Yeah.
other transactions for Uniswap, you want to add liquidity to a pool, but it's $50 to do so, and it starts to not make sense anymore.
Parang
um
it's suffering from its own success in effect, Bert, because there are a lot of people that would like to interact with the blockchain. And so to
Traffic jams.
prioritize, I guess,
Yeah.
so sobrang daming nakapila, 'di ba? To prioritize which ones would actually go first, tumataas yung pricing
Got it.
nung gas, no? So
yeah.
in effect, there's high demand to be on the blockchain or record anything on the blockchain. And so what happens is the prices are actually higher, again because of the success of the protocol, no? So
Yeah.
and ang sinasabi ni Marco pangit lang on the other side of it, the other flip the coin is that yung mga use cases dati na nagsasabi lower cost ito versus
Yeah.
Swift or
Yeah.
wala na yon kasi ang mahal na ngayon eh, di ba?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although it's a hot research topic naman talaga, and it's a priority for the Ethereum devs to actually solve this. I think ETH 2.0, di ba? It's
Yeah.
one of the things that they're looking to solve. So hopefully soon.
Yeah. That's the thing pala here, guys. No, for those who are viewing now, um, like this. Although we talked about decentralization, right? And this is really the birth of blockchain, di ba? Na hey, we have something na not controlled by anybody. That's not entirely true, right? Like it's being para siyang bata, no, na it's growing, but at the same time it actually has advisors or parents around it. And these are the developers that are working actually with the like Ethereum Foundation, for example, or in the case of ADA or Cardano, meron din siyang parang kumbaga parang stewards of the program or the protocol, right? Except that in this case, whatever changes that they do, no, it's very public. You can see it. In fact, if you know Solidity, you would know all the changes they've made, right? You can participate and in effect parang review the contracts also, right? So ganun siya. So meron pa rin talagang nagma-manage sa kanya. Pero like for the most part of it, it's decentralized. Like no one is controlling everything that's happening. It's just at the protocol level, 'di ba? Parang meron silang direction kung saan nila dadalhin 'to. Kasi yun nga, parang very nascent. Well, nascent na nga siya, no?
Yeah. And for
Ah,
contentious mga proposals naman, may voting pa rin naman siya. So technically, miners can still vote away from the chain that's applying it. Kaya tayo mayroon East Classic, di ba? Because some miners or some believers didn't like the fact na reverse yung mga ibang transactions. So you still have that safeguard that you can still vote. The miners can still have a voice for it.
yeah. So that's the thing
Very
again,
cool.
no? It gives power to the ones providing the infrastructure versus in a centralized like a company, let's say the board or the mancom decides what happens, right? And the customers in effect um they either enjoy or on the extreme case like quote unquote suffer the consequences of the decisions. Here though, you can actually vote, right? You have some voting power. Yeah. What other things would be the challenges, Marco? Would you say scaling is a problem still
Well,
in this
scaling yung
technology?
suffering from its own success, that's under it. I think one other thing is regulations, right?
Mm.
Hindi natin maiwasan. Um, for decentralized finance, I mean, you can join it, but there's really no hard regulations now, which is both a good thing and a bad thing. Good thing na the use cases aren't limited yet, but the bad thing is there's also less protection in case things go wrong, both for the
Right.
consumer and for
Right.
the developers. Kasi walang regulation eh. So it's the Wild West, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah,
guys, yeah, we're gonna talk about that some more on the next episodes. If you're curious about decentralized finance, right, and maybe even finance in general, we'll talk about that siguro first in the next episode. Like very first portion of the episode, we'll probably talk about finance a little bit. Bakit nagkaroon ng decentralized finance, right? And the use cases of it next time. So we invited another expert to talk about that. So if you guys have questions on that part, we can probably park it until next week. But Bert, you were saying something before I interrupted you.
yeah. I think more of like towards the end of our session today, I kind of like want to ask like what's your tips for somebody viewing this and he's thinking or she's thinking, hey, I wanna be like Marco, or I wanna learn
Be
about the
like be
blockchain. I
like
wanna
Marco.
I wanna be like program on the blockchain. What's the path that you recommend? Like how should they go about their learning paths?
Yeah, for now, actually, I'd say that they start with Ethereum just because it's the developer community is already mature.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of resources that they can learn from. I mean, I started my learning with Reddit, of all
Oh,
places,
okay.
right?
And now, what's the
Um,
community now?
it's
Still in
quite
Reddit.
extensive. Reddit's still actually useful. I mean, sometimes there's shills or whatever, but there's still valuable answers and resources there. You have the documentation, actually, Solidity.read the docs, right? It's one of the better documentations that I've seen for programming languages. And in there, you can actually learn from those documentations because they have sample code ranging from easy to difficult, right? From the more complex use cases. So you can learn there. And as I mentioned before, it's limited. That's also
Yeah.
a good thing because there's less functions to learn, right? So you can actually go through the thing in less than a week. And next is more on practice and learning the patterns, the standards. And for the standards, you already have the libraries. So I advise you guys to look at Open Zeppelin. That's one
Open
of
what?
the Open Zeppelin,
Okay.
like Led Zeppelin, right? But
Ah,
Open Zeppelin. Um, they have
that's an interesting
standards.
name, huh?
Yeah,
Open
they have
Zeppelin.
implementations for blockchain interfaces. So if you want to create a token, maybe even an ICO, uh, an ERC-721 NFT, right?
Yeah.
They already have interfaces for that. You just have to edit for your specific implementations, but it's still the best case to use their implementation and just build on top of it
Yeah.
because they're already audited. There's a lot of security considerations that they've already looked at.
Yeah. Yeah. And just to touch on that, I guess, no. Before I read some of the comments, the reason why you want to follow standards that were approved by the authorities in this space is actually because, di ba sa blockchain, guys, whatever you write there would be permanent, right? So if you deploy bad code or unsecure code or something that's not even not secure, no, pwede siyang
Just
secure pa rin, but
inefficient, yeah.
inefficient. Oo. So your smart contract would suffer, and then ang problema nun is hindi mo na siya mababago, di ba? Or you have to write another
Wait.
smart contract.
True, no? You deploy your apps for the blockchain on the blockchain.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh.
So the
Oh.
thing, remember immutability, blockchain, you can't change anything on it.
Yeah.
So the code that you deploy, that's it. That's the code. If you have a bug
How do you,
and
yeah, how do you do
you
subsequent
deploy another
versions?
one. So if
Yeah.
you
Deploy another one.
if you catch the bug early, that's fine, right? But if you catch the bug, like you already have $100 million on it, and apparently there's
Yeah.
a bug that people can drain the funds. Oh my
Yeah,
god!
which actually happened, Berta. Which actually
Yeah,
that happened. Yeah.
it's not. It's not a story. It's a real thing that happens.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
for
Interesting.
example, actually we have time, right? So maybe we can probably talk about decentralized apps because that's aligned to blockchain technology and development, right? So Albert's eyes were parang whoa, ganun kanina eh,
Yeah,
nung
it's still dawning
you
on me
deploy
like,
the
yeah, true,
apps.
true.
Yeah. Yeah. So the smart contracts, Bert, your code is actually like an app, right? And you deploy that on the blockchain, right? And then people can and programmers, no, as well, can interact with that smart contract. So for example,
Yeah.
if that, let's oversimplify, if that smart contract is like I think the one I always use is like a betting contract, right? Na pwedeng, if something happens tomorrow, then you owe me something, right? So
Okay.
that one is very generic and people could actually use that contract. So kailangan, for example, nag-iisip
What
ako
when you say
ng
use that contract, what do they mean by use that contract?
So
go ahead, Marco.
you can either interact with it directly, like through a
Yep.
blockchain node. Pwede ka mag-deploy ng code there. That's more of the low-code way of, well, not low-code, but the very tedious way of doing it. You can have like a front end that interacts with the blockchain. So that's like a dApp. You get the state from the blockchain, and the front end will
Display.
format the code for you, do the display, and transact the code and send it to the blockchain for you. So that's how things are mostly done, right? Or you can do it through an explorer or something because they also have ways of interacting with contracts.
Got it. Got it.
Correct.
So, for
Correct.
example, in that case that Jerb was saying, say my contract was between me and Jerb, I would say that can I program it so that if by tomorrow the my Solidity app will make a call to the weather API of weather.com, and if the weather in Manila exceeds 35 degrees Celsius, then money from Albert's wallet will be transferred to Jerb's wallet. Is that what it is, or like?
Pwede.
It's oversimplified, but yes, because
Ah, okay.
you don't have APIs then on the blockchain.
Yeah.
It can't access external data. You need to put in the external data, right? But yes, to your answer, that's how it can work.
Yeah.
Got it.
And usually, Bert, how you would program it is that pwedeng hindi naman specific to a person, no? Hindi pwedeng pwede namang hindi specific to like to an address of Albert, right? It could be that any person, you take any address 1 and any address 2. Oh, not let's not call it address. Any account, let's say account, no? Or person 1, person 2. You take any person 1 and person 2 and they make a bet, and
How do they make
you
that bet? That's where I'm confused.
yeah, so you most likely you would probably stake your money in that contract, right? So ang
And the act of
mangyayari,
staking that money is an API call. What is that?
It's a contract call. So you have a wallet in the blockchain, right? You have,
yeah.
for example, let's just use Ethereum. You have Ethereum, and in that contract, let's say you're betting one to one lang. The odds are 1 to 1, right? Jerb will put in 1 Ethereum. You'll put in 1 Ethereum, and when the contract decides the winner, winner takes all, right?
Got it. So the participating in the contract is essentially like buying a token.
Not.
Depositing
It's
a
more of
token actually
depositing a token.
to the contract. So you
Okay,
have to have the token.
moving my Ethereum credit, some of my
Yes.
credit into
To the
another
contract.
address
Oo.
which is in the contract address,
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
or a
correct.
slot in the contract address. Would that
But
be
more
the
of the
case?
contract address, but
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And then the thing here is that wala nang back out to, 'di ba? Kasi whatever
Mm.
is in the contract, whatever is
Unless, yeah, and because there's no person like operating the smart contract or
Yeah.
controlling.
yes, exactly. Exactly. It's the blockchain that does it, right? And usually, yun nga, meron siyang external data sources that are also trusted. And these are called like oracles, mga ganon.
Oracles. Yeah.
Something cool that you can also learn, guys. No, so tingin kayo
Mhm.
dyan. And these external data sources basically send that information needed on the contract. So in that case, kanina yung sa weather, a trusted weather website siguro or something, or provider of information would put information to that contract. And then usually siguro para ma-incentivize sila, bibigyan mo rin sila ng percentage, no? Pwede mo ring i-program yun, Bert, dun sa smart contract. Oo.
True.
So that's why it's ano, right? It's decentralized. You deploy it, you interact with the contract. No need to interact with anybody. And now this is why the economics part of it is also quite interesting, kasi you would want to incentivize people to actually participate in your contract, right? And so yung mga data providers, bibigyan mo sila ng cut, pwede yun, di ba? So automatic yun. Wala nang dispute mangyayari talaga yun. So walang ano at all, di ba? So it will happen. And
Okay.
Yeah, there's
now,
actually a lot of game theory involved when it comes
yes,
to smart contracts and blockchain. Para lang all the ano yun, all the
scenarios.
participants are incentivized to do things properly.
I know that Jer brought up a betting use case. Is there another use case that's more like in a day to day, right? A more mundane, normal use case that we could take and transfer to a smart contract? Like, can this be like a can it be like a normal contract, like a house sale? Will this work this way?
Yeah. Escrow actually,
Okay.
basically, because I don't know of any that's actually doing it, but one of the things that you can do is, for example, if you have a tokenized title, right? You have a land title that's tokenized on the blockchain and
So like an NFT.
an NFT, right? And
Yeah.
whoever owns that NFT owns the land, right? Let's say that happens. You can
Right.
have an escrow contract wherein the buyer of the land will have to put in the funds, so maybe in the form of a stable coin. Let's say it's 1 million pesos, right? They need to put in 1 million pesos in stable coin in that contract, and that contract is expecting the NFT of the land title. So once the NFT is put into the escrow contract and the money is there, the smart contract will automatically give the funds
Token.
to the seller, yeah, and the NFT to the buyer. So now, the ownership has switched hands, and you didn't really need a middleman to facilitate it, because traditionally you'd have a bank or someone else hold the
Yeah.
money and the
Lawyer.
title before
Broker.
doing that, right?
Middleman.
So now it's the smart contract facilitating that.
So you bypass the notary, you
True.
bypass
Yeah.
the brokers, the paperwork that needs to be done. Essentially, transfer of value, the switching of value. You did it via, well, yeah, this is a contract
Programming.
basically, right? I give
Yeah.
you 1 million, you give me the title, right?
Yes.
That's the contract. We execute it, then we go do the job. This of actually making the paperwork change and stuff like that. That's why you need lawyers so that they're watching every step of the process to make sure that everybody's sticking to the plan, which is the contract. In this
Yeah.
case, the smart contract is the one enforcing that the contract happens accordingly. This is very cool. But it seems like it hinges and depends on the NFT being recognized,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Actually,
Correct.
so that's why earlier we mentioned that one of the things that's hindering or challenging the technology is regulation. Because imagine if the regulators can adopt the technology and issue the land title directly on the blockchain,
As an NFT,
right?
right?
As an
Because right now
NFT.
it's like a piece of paper,
Yeah.
which is so amazing that we hold it in high regard, right? And we are so scared of digital,
Yeah. So
which is
maybe we can just skip digitization and go directly to tokenization
right.
and express it as NFTs.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
We haven't even got digital yet. No? I like how you said like let's skip digitization, go to NFT. I was like, wait. Is it like, oh, I get what you mean.
Yeah, let's
We
just
haven't even digitized
we
it
have
yet.
the opportunity to leapfrog, right?
Yeah.
Correct. There's plenty of use cases, Bert. Like IDs are also being looked at.
Identity, right?
Identity. Yun nga, ano, parang anything that involves provenance, no? Blockchains would be really good kasi nga di na siya matatamper, no? So pwede like yung mga customs or logistics nga, no? Parang makita mo, matatrack mo. And usually these projects also work hand in hand with IoT, no? Kasi yun nga, parang you get information from outside and then you'd normally not siguro put any human involved na there para hindi manual yung pag-enter ng data, etc., etc. So plenty. I think it's it would just depend on your creativity, I guess, as a company that's going into this space. I would say, yep.
Awesome.
We are at the hour. We're actually ano na over time, but it's been fun.
Yep.
Any last thoughts that you'd like to share, Marco? Wait, I'll read some comments. I think puro fans mo lang to. Ang galing ng pagka-explain ni Marco ng analogy ng cryptocurrencies. Go
True.
Marco. Ayan. I can't read itong kay Sumayad Gailu, but yeah. Not a lot of questions tonight, but if you guys have any questions, put it in the comment section and then we'll reach out to Marco to answer them if needed, right? And then yeah, so maybe just to close, Marco, any last thoughts that you'd like to share to the viewers? And then yep, and then I guess that's it for tonight.
Well, for me, actually, for those interested in learning blockchain, one of the things that you can do is to just read white papers and find something interesting for you. Blockchain has the capacity to be a transformative technology. So when you look at blockchain, don't look at blockchainizing things as is, but look at how blockchain can affect the processes and potentially enable new processes, right? So yeah, that's how blockchain can help.
Cool. Thanks,
Alright.
Marco. Thanks, everyone.
Cool.
I think-
So
I-
yep.
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Jerb.
go Bert. Go Bert.
No, go, Jerb. Go, Jerb.
Sige. So I think that wraps up the episode, guys. And I think yun nga, we kind of parked decentralized finance for another episode. We'll have another expert invited to the podcast for that. So if you have any questions related to that, so I hope you guys can join us live next week again and then ask them live also. So that's it. I think see you
Thank
on
you,
the next
everyone.
one. Bye. Salamat, Marco.
Bye.
Thank you,
Right. Sure.
Marco.
Bye,
Bye-bye,
Marco.
everyone.
Thank you, Marco.
Thanks as well. Thanks for having me.
What I've seen that hinders a lot of people in general is they believe that doing their job well actually gets them promoted.
So how would you demystify AI for a 10-year-old?
It's actually harder to explain AI to an older person. Hi, welcome to CTOs Discuss.
So you want to work in big tech companies like Google and Facebook, or create your own startup like Airbnb and Instagram? OmniQuotient is here to help. OmniQuotient is an online learning platform where you can learn something new from prominent developers every day while creating meaningful connections with them. Just go to omniquotient.com. Follow the topics that you want to learn and the developers you want to learn from. Share your tips and tricks in coding and interact with other developers. Join the OmniQuotient community today.